Alexander the Great, the man who conquered the known world before he could legally drink in most modern countries. But first, he had to survive his own coronation. First, let's set the stage. Here's the world our story unfolds in, around 334, with Babylon right at the heart of it. Pella, 336 BC. Philip II is dead, stabbed at his daughter's wedding. His son Alexander, aged 20, now has a kingdom to run and a murderous hangover to cure. Spring 334 BCE. Alexander the Great, aged 21, decides the Persian Empire looks like a lovely vacation spot. He packs 48,000 friends and a chip on his shoulder. He lands near the ancient ruins of Troy, not to sightsee, but to pay respects to his hero Achilles. Nothing says, "I'm about to conquer you," like a pilgrimage to a dead warrior. Alexander, barely old enough to grow a proper beard, decides the best way to cross a river is to do it first and ask questions later. His horse Bucephalus seems equally unimpressed by the Persian arrows. Alexander personally spears a Persian noble who thought riverbanks were for relaxing. The noble's shocked expression says, "Wait, this is my first day as a commander." And here's Babylon up close, where our story really plays out. Now the big move, the road from Pella to Babylon. Alexander's fleet arrives at Miletus, but the Persian navy is already there, blocking the harbor. It's a naval standoff, and Alexander hates sharing. He orders his men to scale the walls while his navy watches uselessly. Miletus falls, but Alexander fires his entire fleet, because who needs boats when you have ambition? Alexander arrives at Gordium, where an ancient wagon sits tied with the world's most complicated knot. Legend says whoever unties it rules Asia. Alexander studies the knot for a moment, then decides the prophecy didn't specify to untie it. He draws his sword and slices through the rope. Alexander's army marches south into Syria. Darius III, finally roused from his palace, decides to personally crush this brat. He brings his entire empire. Alexander charges straight at Darius, spearing through bodyguards like a hot knife through Persian butter. Darius watches his elite troops scatter and decides he has a prior engagement. Darius flees so fast he leaves behind his family, his treasure, and his dignity. Alexander strolls into the Persian camp and finds a royal tent that screams, "I overcompensate." Alexander arrives at Tyre and realizes this island city has a serious attitude problem. It has walls rising straight from the sea, and it's laughing at his siege. So Alexander decides to build a causeway, basically a highway over the sea. Because when the gods give you lemons, you build a bridge and invade. Late 332 BCE, Alexander strolls into Egypt like he owns the place. The Persians? Already fled. The Egyptians? They throw him a parade. The priests declare him Pharaoh, son of Ammonius. Alexander, never one to turn down a promotion, graciously accepts and promptly founds a city in his own name. After conquering Egypt, Alexander decides to take a detour into the desert, because nothing says divine destiny like a really long walk in the sand. He arrives at the oracle of Ammonius, where the priests, no doubt impressed by his resume, declare him son of Zeus Ammon. Alexander kneels before the statue, probably thinking, yeah, that checks out. October 1st, 331 BCE. Darius has had enough of running. He's parked his army at Gaugamela with 200 war chariots, hoping to turn Alexander into a kebab. Alexander just shrugs. He orders his phalanx to advance in a weird angled formation, letting the chariots charge harmlessly through gaps like a bad bowling alley. Alexander arrives at Persepolis, the jewel of the Persian Empire, and decides the party needs a little ambience. Flames are cheaper than torches. The flames spread, swallowing the palace of 100 columns. Alexander watches, maybe a little proud, maybe a little drunk, history isn't sure. July 330 BC, Darius III, King of Kings, has been reduced to a hostage in his own kingdom. His loyal satrap Bessus decides that loyal is a flexible term. Bessus stabs Darius, leaving him for dead in a cart. When Alexander arrives, he finds the great king's body and decides to give him a royal burial. Classy move, Alex. Philotas, Alexander's top general, is dragged before the army. He's accused of knowing about a conspiracy and not telling. Oops. Alexander signs the death warrant with a flourish. Philotas is executed. And just to be thorough, Alexander sends a hit squad after his dad, Parmenion. It's 328 BC. Alexander and his generals are deep in their cups at Maracanda, celebrating a victory, because nothing says fun like a drinking contest with a megalomaniac. Cleitus, too drunk to remember his place, boasts that he saved Alexander's life at Granicus, and that Alexander is nothing without his father's men. Ouch! Alexander, fresh off a drinking party that ended in murder, decides the best way to stabilize his empire is a wedding. Because nothing says, I'm a unifier, like a shotgun marriage to a hostage princess. The Persian nobles grin through gritted teeth, while the Macedonians mutter that this foreign girl better not expect them to bow. Alexander just beams, thinking he's solved diplomacy with a ring. Alexander crosses the Indus into India in 326 BCE, expecting another quick conquest. He has not met King Porus yet. On the far bank, Porus sits atop a massive war elephant, arms crossed, clearly unimpressed. The elephant yawns. Alexander gives a rousing speech about glory and the end of the world. His soldiers stare back at him with the deadpan look of men who have marched far enough. Caenus, the voice of the army, steps forward. We're done, boss. Take us home. Alexander sulks in his tent for 3 days like a teenager denied a road trip. Alexander decides the quickest way home is through the Gedrosian Desert, because nothing says victory lap like walking through a furnace. The sun is unrelenting. Soldiers collapse from heat stroke, and the sand burns through their boots. Alexander rides ahead, looking back with increasing concern. In October 324 BCE, Hyphasis falls ill with a fever. Alexander rushes to his bedside, but the doctors can only shrug helplessly. Hyphasis. Alexander throws himself onto the body, weeping like a child. The world conqueror has lost the only man he truly loved. June 10th, 323 BC. Alexander lies in a feverish haze, his body racked by a mysterious illness. The conqueror of the world is now fighting for his own breath. His last words, to the strongest, echo through the room. No one knows who he means, but everyone immediately starts eyeing the nearest crown. Alexander's generals gather around a map, like vultures circling a carcass. Each one has a plan and a dagger to back it up. The partition of Babylon carves the empire into pieces. Each general gets a slice, but nobody's satisfied. The peace treaty is just a receipt for future wars.